Hello, welcome to episode 4 of Cocktails and Controllers. I'm Kennedy, this is Marisa, we are your hosts. This week we are playing Life is Strange 2, and this episode will wrap up our series for the Life is Strange series. Hopefully there will be another game that comes out in the future, but for now this series will be complete. Please be aware of spoilers, we are drinking, so please drink responsibly. What are we drinking?
Oh yeah. You want me to go first?
Sure.
I have a Mike's hard black cherry lemon. It's alright. Not the best flavor, but it's pretty good. I again have my Naruto glass with, what did I put in here? It was Coke, and then the prickly pear vodka, and then of course I have my shot with Fireball.
Of course. I've got my customary boob shot glass, and I'm continuing to finish off this bottle of my Captain Morgan Loco Nut, which is the coconut cream rum, which is really good. I've got about like this much left. I don't think I'm going to finish that this episode, unless I really want to get fucked up, then I will. But I've also got, I'm feeling fancy today, right? So I have my Sunday glass, right?
Interesting.
I got them a few years ago and then haven't used them since. That one's got my Dr. Pepper and then my prickly pear vodka because I also need to finish off this bottle. And then add those to my bottle shelf, which I clearly do not have ever. It'll be up at some point, just not now.
Have you ever had peanut butter whiskey?
Ooh, no.
Peanut butter whiskey with Dr. Pepper. That's really good.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Like the sound of that.
All right, before we start, we'll go ahead and do our first big cheers.
First cheers.
Cheers.
Kanpai.
Kanpai.
All right, let me start us off with the official game summary from Square Enix. After a tragic accident, brothers Sean Diaz and Daniel Diaz run away from home. Fearing the police and dealing with Daniel's new telekinetic power, the boys flee to Mexico for safety. Suddenly, 16-year-old Sean is responsible for Daniel's safety, shelter, and teaching him right from wrong. As Sean, your choices shape the fates of the Diaz brothers and the lives of everyone they meet. The road to Mexico is long and filled with danger. This is the trip that could bond Sean and Daniel forever, or tear their brotherhood apart. So before we start, I just want to mention that choices are super important in this game. And Marisa, you and I played this game separately, so we both had different outcomes. But I will tell you that in my first genuine playthrough of the game, I played this 4 times to get all the endings. In my first genuine playthrough, I raised Daniel as a fucking psychopath, and completely by accident. I was just trying to be like the cool older brother, you know? And then I got like one of the worst, actually technically I got 2 of the worst possible endings that you can get in this entire game. So my experience will very much differ from Marisa's. Just bear that in mind.
I was a good boy.
Marisa was a good boy. And then in my second and third playthrough, I was also a good boy and I did all the quote unquote good options. So episode 1 starts off and it starts off really, really well. You get to see a glimpse of Sean and Daniel in their everyday lives. Sean and his best friend, Lila, they're walking home from school. They're talking about this high school party that they're going to go to later. Sean is sort of tasked with gathering supplies, as in like food and alcohol for their party later that night. And it's important to note here that when he's trying to find all these things, his interaction with his dad, I think, is super crucial. And I think going into this blind without knowing anything about the plot, which I'm not sure how you can do that, considering the fact when it was released, you know exactly what's going to happen to this family. You? Oh, yeah. Like
I didn't.
You didn't?
I did not.
Oh my god, no, I thought that was obvious, because when they first released gameplay, or I guess the first initial trailer of it, it was the security camera footage from the cop car, and you see the cop car getting flown over, you hear Daniel screaming, and I think maybe I just assumed what it was already, But the fact that it's Daniel and Sean, who are both Latinos, and there's very much cops involved, like, I already assumed that someone was going to die. And more than likely, it was going to be a parent, because let's be honest, Life is Strange is a thing for killing parents. So I think that was going to be a thing there. I think maybe either I just assumed it or I saw something.
I legit didn't know, but I went in pretty blind. The only thing that I had known about it before was Captain Spirit, because we played that like the day it dropped. And then I think we waited a couple months before we actually started playing Life is Strange 2. But by then, like, I was already avoiding spoilers. I know you were talking about it, and then I was just like, don't tell me anything. So I legitimately did not know. I didn't even know who, like, the main characters were. I was still in the, like, is it Chris? Is it the two random boys? Like, I was still in that limbo. So I didn't know anything. And when that happened, like, when that happened, it was, like, me and Diana were both Mexican, and then we were just like, yeah. It was funny.
I think that's also, like, a big difference in the way that you and I play games, is that I will almost purposefully look for the spoilers in a game because I really want to know. But not to mention, like, seeing spoilers most of the time will not deter me from playing a game. It makes me want to play it more. There's only a few games where I went in playing blind. Before the Storm was one of those games, actually. And then not so much of the other Life is Strange games. I think I knew right from the get-go what I was going to get.
Yeah, the first Life is Strange game I played episodically. Like, I played it as it came out.
Yeah.
So I didn't know anything at all.
I think, so I can say that for Life is Strange 2, because I did play it episodically as they came out. I think the only one that I knew for sure what was going to happen was going to be episode 1.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because they had the most content out for it, and then it was just like the few 20 seconds of trailer that they had at the end of each episode that gives you clues as to what the next ones are going to be. But other than that, I like went in blind, and I think that's why I raised a fucking psychopath.
I still didn't know anything after like we played the first episode, not even to completion when it came out. And then we waited an entire year to start playing the rest of the episodes. So that last week we started, or 2 weeks ago, when we recorded the last one, we started on episode 2, but like halfway through, because that's where we had stopped before. So we played the rest of 2, and then 3, 4, and 5 in like the span of a week. So I don't know. I don't remember a lot of the first episode and half of the second, but I remember 3, 4, and 5.
That's fair, because I mean, each episode themselves is about 2.5, 3 hours long, depending on your play style, I think. I think if you just like skip all like the side stuff, then you'll just get straight through it in like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
It took a little longer for us because we were both like, what should we do? What should we do? And I was trying not to look up spoilers of what each decision would make up until the very, very last one, where we were just like, fuck, I don't know what to do. And we had to look it up, and that's... But yeah, we were doing so good up until that very last decision, and we didn't know what to do.
That's fair. I cheated once in the game, and that was in episode 4? Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry. It was the beginning of... Yeah, no, I'm right. It's the beginning of episode 4. We'll get there. But, like, I, for the life of me, could not fucking figure out how to get out of the damn hospital room. So I had to look it up, because I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing right now? That's the only
There's, like, multiple... Okay, we'll talk about it later, but there's multiple ways, right?
Yeah, there's multiple ways.
Okay.
But moving on, so we're still at the very first episode. Sean gets to interact with his dad and his brother, and they're arguing over a candy bar. And that's the first glimpse that you get to see about their home dynamic. And it's very pure, it's very wholesome. Sean and Daniel are the very stereotypical siblings. I fight like that with my sister all the time. Deciding like who gets what type of thing, showing favoritism. And I remember in my first genuine playthrough, I gave the candy bar to Esteban, I think because I knew he was gonna die, and I was like, you deserve a candy bar.
Oh no.
And then in my good playthrough, I gave it to Daniel, because I felt kind of guilty. Spoiler alert, Esteban dies. 2 seconds too late. And so you spend the rest of that, I guess, beginning portion exploring the house, interacting with your dad, and I think this is the first chance you get to see Sean as a character and the type of character he's going to be. And I think what's really important about his interaction with his father is that he can be super honest and super open with him. And that's kind of seen when he's asking for money to essentially like buy alcohol, buy candy for the said party. And his dad will say, okay, here's money. Here's also a little bit of extra. Thank you for being so honest. And not to mention, there's also a moment that I think I noticed, but I don't think it stuck out to most other people, is that when Sean's leaving the room, Esteban says something along the lines of, oh, aren't you forgetting something? And Sean says, I love you. And I think that's like the first inclination that you get that, hey, this family is like super open and they're okay to express their emotions. And I think that's something you'll see later on as the game progresses, that Sean and Daniel they're both open about their emotions. And I think that's something that you don't see very often in media. You kind of see, especially with male characters, you see them bottling shit up. And I don't think that's healthy to bottle shit up, despite the fact that I'm also very good at doing that. But I think that was important that Sean and Daniel are able to have that with each other. Otherwise, I think this could have gone in a very different direction. Maybe it's the reason I raised a psychopath. Oh well. I will bring that up on multiple occasions on how I got like the worst possible ending.
It's still so funny to me. Because, like, you actually kind of knew it was coming, and we were just being good boys.
I tried my best. I was trying my best. My best apparently raised a fucking murderer. But anyway, so the episode progresses, and shit gets real, right? Because Daniel's outside, he's playing zombies, and he's got his mask on and his fake blood. And then you get this fucking asshole neighbor who comes out and is picking on Daniel. And Sean, of course, goes out, and he was like, hey, depending on the choices that you pick, I chose to stand up for Daniel because, first of all, fuck this idiot next door, right? You don't bully like a 9-year-old kid, right? Mm-hmm. And so it escalates to the point where Sean and the neighbor kid get into a fight, and he ends up getting either pushed, I think, or he trips on a rock. He trips and then falls, and his head hits a rock. And this kid dies. Yeah. And so Sean and Daniel, they're panicking. The cops are there, I think because they were driving by or something to that effect. The cops were super nearby. And he's got his gun out. He's pointing it at Sean and Daniel. And they're telling them to get down on their knees, hands behind their head, the whole shebang, right? And both of them are scared, obviously, as they should be, because there is a grown-ass adult pointing a gun at them. And so Esteban comes out and he gets shot. And when he gets shot, Daniel like lashes out. And this is where the security camera, dash cam, right? Dash cam pops up. And so you're not exactly quite sure what happened, except for the fact that the cop gets killed, the car gets overturned, and then Sean comes to, and Daniel's just like on the ground. It looks like a hurricane just like passed through their houses. Sean panics, which I feel like was a natural reaction, that he panics and he takes off. And I know there was some speculation of, oh well, he should have stayed, like things would have been better. But in all honesty, in my personal opinion, may or may not cut this part out, I think that whether or not Sean ran or stayed, I think the outcome would have been the same. Because let's be honest, our system is rigged, and it is not in the favor of anybody who's a person of color.
Yeah.
So just putting that one out there. So episode 1 picks up when Sean and Daniel are walking along in the woods, and Sean hasn't said anything to Daniel by this point, because, I mean, how can you? How can you say, hey, our dad was killed, cop died, you might have superpowers. Like, that's kind of a lot to manage in one episode, or in
especially
one
for a 9-year-old.
Yeah, especially for a 9-year-old. So Sean, I think, is doing the best that he can, trying to shield Daniel from the truth and get them down to Mexico, because he thinks that's the best place that they'll be safe.
Yeah. It's also like their family's from, like Puerto Lobos.
Yeah.
Where they're, yeah.
And I think it's also important to remember, I think it's easy to forget, but I think it's important to remember that Sean is, 15 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean's literally a teenager. He is, like, barely a teenager. That's a lot of responsibility for a 15-year-old. And I think it's really easy to forget that, especially as the episodes keep progressing, because he's had to put so much responsibility on his own shoulders that at some point you kind of forget that, shit, this kid's only 15. Like, this entire game takes place within a year. So Sean and Daniel, they're walking through the woods, and you get to spend a night where you're camping and you're trying to make everything all hunky-dory. You're just on a regular trip. And that's where you come across this gas station. And this is kind of the first sign that you get that shit's going down. Like, this game is not here to play. They are going to throw real life fucking racism at you. And it's real heavy. But this is the first time you get introduced to the fact that, hey, there are real life racists in this world, and it fucking sucks. And it's encountered in a gas station. Sean is just trying to get food for Daniel, and they meet this really nice guy. His name's Brody. I love Brody. He's great. He's my favorite character, and I wish he came back, but he didn't. It's fine. But Brody is basically this dude who runs this online blog, and that's what he does for a living. He travels around the country, and he writes about it. He's important later as a character. But for now, Sean is just trying to get Daniel food, and they're confronted by the husband of the wife, the husband of the wife. So Sean's
I mean, you're not wrong.
I mean, right? Sean's confronted by the owner of this place, and this gas station is co-run by this husband and this wife. And so the husband comes out and talks to Sean while they're sitting on a picnic bench trying to figure out their next steps, where they need to go. He basically confronts them and says, hey, I recognize you two from the newspapers. You're those cop killers. Sean tries to protect Daniel, obviously, and tells Daniel to run, but Sean is knocked out by this guy, and when he wakes up, he's handcuffed in, like, the storage closet and has no way to get out. And that's when Daniel sort of comes in, and you can hear him through the vents. And you basically have to guide Daniel into helping you escape. And as you do, eventually the owner of the gas station comes back, sees you, and then that's where Daniel's power kicks in again. He goes, like, batshit psycho, basically. It's like this huge wave of telekinetic energy. The whole place is in shambles. Hurricane 2.0. Daniel doesn't know what's happening, right, of course. But there's no time to think. They just have to run because these people are after them. And so Sean and Daniel, they run, and they bump into Brody, who's happily in his car, and he's knocking on the window, and he's like, hey, please, 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 we need help. These crazy people are trying to get us. So Brody, of course, is such an angel. He lets Sean and Daniel into his car, and they're driving down. And this is where you're introduced to Mushroom, who is an adorable dog. And Daniel kidnaps her, basically, from the gas station, because said dog was sitting on the side, basically was saying, oh, like, free puppy or whatever. And Daniel was like, I want a puppy. And Sean was like, bro, we can't afford a dog right now. Daniel takes the dog anyway and names her Mushroom. But the three of them end up in this motel, and Brody, being such an angel that he is, paid for this hotel room for the two of them to stay, gave them a couple things to, help them along for a bit, hopes that they'll make it to Mexico. Sean and Daniel are in their hotel room, or in this motel room, and this is where you get that moment of, hey, we should sit down and talk to Daniel about what actually happened. However, that opportunity doesn't come because Daniel wants something from the vending machine. So Sean goes out, gets the vending machine.
Oh, I remember.
And the lights start flickering, and he kind of starts hearing something, and he's like, oh shit, it's got to be Daniel. So he runs back, sees Daniel, and on the TV they're playing the news feed, right? And they're talking about their father and the fact that he's dead. And so that's how Daniel finds out. He's got all these powers, and the room is Hurricane 3.0, and Sean has to tell him, I'm sorry, I didn't want to hide it from you, I didn't know how. And then they both grieve over their father. And that is the end of episode 1.
Didn't they pass by Arcadia Bay?
Oh, they did, that's right, I forgot about that. They passed by Arcadia Bay. And depending on whether or not you chose to slaughter the whole town and save Chloe, or if you killed Chloe, there will be a plaque up, and the plaque will say, if you kill the whole town, the plaque will say, in remembrance of all of those who were wiped out by the tornado. And then if not, the plaque won't be there, but they'll comment on the town's populace, basically. They'll say something to the effect of, look at all those people down there, type of thing. But for a fact it's Arcadia Bay, because for one, I think either they say Arcadia Bay, or you can very clearly see that it's Arcadia Bay with the lighthouse and everything.
They definitely say it. I do remember that. But it's really funny because, when I was playing the first episode, for some reason we could not figure out how to, progress the story. We couldn't figure out what we were supposed to do. So literally we stopped in the middle of it because we were playing really late at night. And then fucking 6 months later, we try and go back to finish episode 1, and we remember nothing. So, yeah. I don't know why, we could not figure out how to progress. I was just we were walking him around and just, trying to talk to the family at the table, and, trying to go inside and get bread or something. And, nothing was working. Then the second episode starts, and they have the dog now, and it turns out they've been camping in this abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods, where there's a lake there, really picturesque, but it's just this abandoned cabin that I think it's almost winter, so the family must have left and gone back home for the winter.
So there's a clue about to what happened to the family, and it's actually in the bathroom. This one, I don't know why I remember this one so clearly, but I do. But if you're going into the bathroom, you'll find this letter and these pills, and basically the owner of said cabin had cancer and he died.
I do.
Yeah. And so that's why the whole place is abandoned, but Sean of course hasn't said anything to Daniel because he doesn't want to be like, hey, we're living in a dead guy's house.
But yeah, they're in this cabin for the beginning of the episode, and they're playing with mushroom in the snow, and it's really cute. And they've developed exercises for Daniel to try and develop his powers a little bit more. So the beginning of the episode, you're running around outside with Daniel and having him go about these exercises that that Sean has created for him, up until they let Mushroom outside to go to the bathroom, and then the cougar comes and beats up Mushroom. I'm sorry, it's really sad. I don't know why I'm laughing, but Mushroom dies though.
It was, that moment in the entire game was so heartbreaking. And I know there's two options here that you can pick on whether or not to let the cougar live or not.
Yeah.
And the first time it happened, I was so devastated. I let Daniel kill the cougar because I was thinking, this motherfucker just killed an innocent puppy. She did not deserve to die. So I let Daniel kill the cougar, and I think that's what started me on the path of raising a psychopath.
I didn't. I was like, Daniel, stop. This is an animal, Mother Nature. We need to let her live. She was trying to get some meat. It's fine. But yeah, it was really sad. Yeah, mushroom. We told him not to get her anyway because we couldn't feed it. Like,
that doesn't mean you deserve to die, though.
I mean, that's true, but I mean, you know, circle of life or whatever. But anyway, after that, they're trying to decide on where to go after that happened. And I don't know what made them think of this, but I guess their grandparents live relatively close by. Yeah, so they decide to go there because it's like winter, and traveling in winter would be awful anyway, just because of the snow. So they pop up in their grandparents' house, introduce themselves. This is the first time for either of them to meet their grandparents. They were like estranged for some reason.
I think Sean knew who his grandparents were.
Okay.
I think they'd met before Daniel was born. Yeah, that's how he knows that they're there.
I remember he mentioned about visiting them when he was younger.
Yeah.
But they end up going to their grandparents' house. Yeah.
That's why they're estranged. Yeah. Okay. Estranged. Okay, yeah.
I guess after she died. But yeah.
She didn't die.
She didn't die. She left. Why did I say? I was thinking of Chris for some reason. I was like, she definitely died. No, their mom left. So they show up at their grandparents' place. Like, what up? They've never met Daniel. Sean, they've met a couple times. But they're wary of letting them into their house because they have seen the news, and all of the news is saying that these kids are cop killers, so they're a little bit hesitant to let them into their home, but they're family, so they let them in anyway. And I think it's on the condition that they can go into any room in their house except for their mother's old room. They're in there living it up a little bit. Like, they have a warm place to sleep, they have food, they have their basic necessities accounted for. And then at some point, they go outside, or doesn't the grandma send them next door to play with Chris?
I think Daniel was the one who went over first, and then Sean's just kind of trying to keep a low profile because he understands the gravity of the situation.
Yeah. So something happens. I don't remember. But they end up...
so it's fine.
They end up going to the neighbor's house, or this is where it starts to collide with Captain Spirit, because their grandparents' neighbor is Chris and his father from The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. And that's where Daniel saves Chris. At this point, you now know that Daniel is the one who has powers and not Chris. But Chris is under the impression that he has powers, so he invites them inside to like eat and play with him and other kid stuff. I don't know. But the entire time, like, Daniel's keeping up the impression that Chris has these powers, so whenever he, like, does a hand to do the Jedi mind trick, Daniel starts to move it closer to him, and that just keeps up the impression that he has the powers. But at one point, Sean pulls Daniel aside, and you can choose, like, either to keep up with the deception or to tell him, like, Daniel, you need to tell him the truth. So, personally, I picked tell him the truth, because you can't let this little kid think that he has powers when he obviously doesn't.
See, that's where I differed, and I know in one of my playthroughs I told him to just, like, to stop using his powers, but, like, don't tell Chris that, like, that's not a thing. And so that's where I think you and I got different endings on episode 2, which we'll discuss that when it comes to it, because I want to know. I don't know what ending you got yet, so we'll get there.
There's different endings in episode 2?
There are different endings in episode 2.
What?
We'll get there.
Oh, gee. But yeah, so I told Daniel to stop lying because that's mean. And Chris takes it like a champ. He's like, damn, you have powers, that's so cool. And I don't know, him and Daniel end up becoming, like, best friends. But then the whole thing about The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit was them going to find this Christmas tree, right?
Yep.
So this continues that Christmas tree adventure, and Chris's father actually invites Sean and Daniel to the Christmas fair with him, and that's where the Christmas tree farm. It was like the farm, but there was also the little vendors with their items and whatever. So it was like a Christmas fair. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then you can also buy like a Christmas gift.
So Chris's dad invites them to the Christmas tree farm, and you can go and pick out a Christmas tree for them. But there's also the little area where you can decide to pick up a Christmas gift for Daniel. And I think I got him the cheapest item, which was like this weird snowman thingy.
Actually, me too. I got the cheapest item because we did not have a lot of money.
Sean has the option of, there's a table there. He has the option of sitting down and drawing. That's the equivalent of Max taking pictures in the first game. Is him studying the scene and drawing it out, because is that a thing? Is like everyone an artist in Life is Strange? Like I feel like that's a thing.
I think that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, so you can sit there and observe and sketch things, and then you can decide to sketch them either as it looks as in real life, or you can add a weird element to it. Like I remember there's one from later on in the game where you can add like aliens and stuff to it.
Oh,
but that's always like an option that you can get whenever you make Sean draw, is like draw it as real life or with this fun fantastical element to it. But anyway, you can make him draw, and as he's there sitting at this table, like in the middle of this Christmas tree farm, you can look to, I don't know, I think she's in front of you, I don't remember, but there's a girl who is just sitting there playing guitar. And
by the way, I loved her song. It's so good.
Don't remember it at all. But she's sitting there playing guitar, busking, and like getting money, and there's a couple other kids with her, I think.
It's just Finn.
It's just Finn with her? Okay. Yeah. So they're getting some money and playing songs for people, and you can choose to go up to them and give them money, which I think I did. I gave them money, and then you can start talking to them from there, and they let you know that they've been traveling around doing this, doing and getting money, and that's what they do for a living. They just wander around. He ends up going back home with the Christmas tree that they picked out, and then they go back to their grandparents' house. I think they spend a couple more days there, but there's a point where the grandparents decide to go to church or something. I think it's church, and they leave the house with Sean and Daniel in it.
Right.
Daniel said, "I want to see my mom's room." So they spent that last portion of that episode looking for the key to their mother's room. And you can look in a bunch of different places. There's like, the grandpa has a little room where he makes miniature train sets.
Oh, that's right. I
so you can like look in there, you can look in the bathroom, you can look in the grandma's room. But that's literally like the one rule that they set. They're like, don't go in that room, and they're breaking it. And I felt really bad because I didn't want to do that. But eventually you find the key. I think it was in like a wardrobe or something. And I think it was. I don't remember.
We'll go with that.
They get it, and then they enter the room, and then Daniel's just having fun playing in it, and Sean's there reminiscing about his mom. And then, of course, the grandparents come back home, find them in the room. The grandma yells at them a bunch.
Wait, they also found a letter, didn't they? From Karen, the mother?
Oh, shit. She wrote a letter to them? Or their mom and dad? I don't remember.
I think she wrote a letter to them. Oh, no, that's right. So Karen writes a letter to her parents asking them, hey, if her kids come around, like, take care of them.
Oh, and they left them there?
Get mad. Yeah. Because Sean's like, well, she reached out. Like, why the fuck didn't you say anything?
Anyway, they get mad at them, ground them or whatever, and then the grandpa goes back to his little room to make his little train models and stuff. And then I think you're kind of made to go back into the room that you guys share, or did they have different rooms? I don't remember. Anyway, something happens and you hear a loud thump, and then you're just like, what the fuck was that? And then you run downstairs to the grandpa's room, and he's trapped underneath a wardrobe that fell on him. And this is where you can choose whether or not to use your powers to lift the cupboard off of him, or to like use your little boy 15-year-old strength and try and lift it off of him.
What did you pick? Because I chose to just do it like with our own strength. Like I didn't
not.
ask. Oh, so you used Daniel's power.
I used Daniel's powers.
I did not.
Because we realized earlier that when there's a scene, I think, in this episode where you can talk to the grandpa one-on-one, and he kind of picks up that something is wrong or something.
That's right.
There's something that they're not telling him. And so I know that the grandpa would understand. So when it got to that point later on in the episode, and the wardrobe fell on him, we decided collectively that using our powers was the best way to do it, because both of us knew that if we used Sean's actual strength, that there's no way that we could lift it off of him without hurting him.
Oh.
So we used Daniel's powers to get it off quickly. And at that point, like after that happened, the grandpa was just like, I knew something was up. It's fine. We won't tell anybody. And like he gets out without getting hurt, because I know if Sean uses his actual like little boy strength, that he still gets hurt.
That's in all the playthroughs that I did, I still chose to hide Daniel's power at that point.
I didn't.
So
I was
like both in my good ending and my bad ending ones, I did not use Daniel's power in that moment.
Yeah, we did, because I knew, I was like, there's no way we are getting this off of him without hurting him if we don't use his powers. And he's already like 80 something, so it was like the logical choice.
That's fair.
Yeah, so we used Daniel's powers, and then the grandma was just shocked. She was very, very shocked that we had that. But the grandpa was like, bruh, I knew something like this was coming. Like, this is fine. And he kind of consoles the grandma and makes her not freak out. And then right at that point is when you get a knock on the door, and then the grandma, I think, looks outside, and then they realize that it's the police, and they've had just reports matching the descriptions of Sean and Daniel are in that area. And the grandma basically, since the grandpa like calmed her down, it goes to open the door and talk to him and try and stall him a little bit so you can grab your things and get out of the house. They like leave and they say bye to Chris because he's outside on their way out. And then he's like, do you want to play? And they're like, bro, we gotta go. And they kind of yeet out of there. I don't remember what else happens.
Okay, see, so this is where your ending and my ending differed. So in my good playthrough, Chris was sitting on the swing, and he helped Sean and Daniel get out of there, right? And I think that was the ending I got.
That's what I got.
So in my bad playthrough, Chris still thought he had powers. So he went out into the street and tried to stop the cop car with his powers and got hit. So in my ending, Chris fucking got hit by the cop cars and ended up in the hospital. So there was that.
I forgot. He can like die there, right? I'm pretty sure he can die there because
I don't think he can die there. I think
we were reading
really injured.
I don't know. We were reading through the options at the end where they see you the percentage, and I think there's an option where like Chris fucking dies.
Okay, at least I didn't get anything where he fucking dies.
I'm like pretty sure that he can die. Like,
I did not get an ending where he dies.
We were trying really hard to be good boys, and I'm so glad we got the good boy endings.
Okay. Yeah, I got him severely injured in the first one. In my genuine playthrough, I got him severely injured.
Oh, jeez.
Second playthrough, he helped us escape and no one got hurt.
Yeah, because he's there, and then, like, Daniel's like, you gotta help us, Captain Spirit, and he's like, aye, aye, Captain, and then he, like, runs off. But he knows he doesn't have powers, because we told him. Yeah. We're like, Chris, it was Daniel. It wasn't you. You're not... Yeah.
Episode 3. So, okay, low-key, I know episode 3 pretty well-ish, based on the fact that it's, like, my favorite chapter in the entire series. One, because it's actually, I feel like that's the chapter where everything's kind of good, you know? It's pretty low-key. Sean and Daniel are just kind of chilling. It's a good episode. Not to mention, this is also kind of the first episode where they introduce Sean and Cassidy as Sean's love interests, and I'm a sucker for the gay. So let's just put that out there. Hence the flag. You can't see the but it's very clearly a flag. And so episode 3 starts off, you are in Humboldt County, California, I think. California, because weed's legal there. And you are working on a pot farm. You're working on a pot farm with Sean and Cassidy and all these other runaways. Which, fun fact, also ties back into Captain Spirit. Because when you're looking through the laptop, so if you're playing as Chris and you're looking through his father's laptop, you'll notice that there's an article there talking about train hoppers. And a lot of people speculated at first that this was a connection to Chloe and Rachel hopping the rails and them going off on their wonderful adventure together. But in actuality, this was a flash forward hint. Either way, this was it was an indication that this article was actually talking about Sean and Cassidy and all the other people in their group, which was really interesting. I really loved this chapter. But in this whole chapter, it's more of an exploration, I think, of Sean as a character, but also you get to see how Daniel is starting to be affected by all of this. He's upset that he had to leave his best friend behind. He's upset that he had to leave behind a sense of normality. Because, of course, while they were living with the grandparents, he had that sense of, hey, I'm allowed to be a kid again. We're in some place that's safe, where people are taking care of us. And that's definitely something, as a 9-year-old boy, that's what you're used to. And so Daniel's upset about that. He's upset about a lot of things, that their father's gone, that they're on the run again. Because I don't blame Daniel. He wants to stay safe with their grandparents. That's just a natural thing to want, I think. And so this entire episode, you're kind of having to deal with Daniel being this moody kid and Sean trying his best to be both a brother and a father. And I think that's really hard on Sean, and you can kind of see that in the way that their dynamic has started to shift. And so this entire episode, you get to work on the weed farm, you get to clip the buds, and you get to hang out with the various people who are in this camp. And one of these, who becomes a significant character later on, his name is Jacob. And Jacob is this gay kid who's been sort of kicked out of his very religious community. And so he joins up with Finn and Cassidy and Penny and Hannah. He relates to Sean on a level of, they're both older brothers to younger siblings who are, I think, the same age. And so there's kind of that connection there. And I think that was really important for them to show that, hey, Jacob's kind of in the same boat as Sean. A similar boat as Sean, because let's be frank, like, his parents did not horrifically die. They were not shot in front of him.
Would that, he asks you about how he should answer this question from his sister, and I picked the completely wrong answer. It was bad. Because he got a letter from his sister, right? And she was asking about how he is or whatever, and he was like, hey Sean, what should I write here? And I was like, I think I said something about how he should write something about unicorns or whatever, and then he was like, my sister's not really that kind of girl, but thank you. It was really sad.
That was not.
I was trying to help him.
But so as you're playing through episode 4, there's a few moments in here that I think are crucial to 3. Oh my god, we're in episode 3. My bad. So we're in episode 3. And I think one of the crucial moments that happens is when you're all sitting around the campfire, and it's right after you finish clipping buds for Meryl, because that's the farm that you're working on. Is it Meryl? I'm gonna pretend his name is Meryl.
I don't know his name.
I know
there's a dude.
I know Meryl is either the bodyguard or the dude who owns the farm. Either way, it's one of them.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna pretend it's one of them. Whatever. And so There's a moment where they're all hanging around the campfire and Daniel is tired and he wants to go to bed. And so you, as Sean, have the option to go and follow him, tuck him into bed, and you just talk about Daniel's attitude issues. The first time I played this, I was like, I really want to get this dumb haircut. And I really want to hang out with all the other guys. I am so sick of Daniel right now. I'm trying to be a person, you know? I don't want to be a parent forever type of thing.
I made him go after Daniel.
So that was the option I picked for my good ending. So in my good playthrough, I followed Daniel and I talked about his anger management issues. I went up to him and I was thinking, hey, you know, we got to talk about your issues. My genuine playthrough, I did not follow Daniel. I stayed. I got the haircut, which I had actually Sean's haircut for a while, the new one, where he's got the shaved sides and then the little divot in the front, you know?
Oh, I see it. I found Sean's haircut, at least.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Yep, I had that haircut.
It's good. We were like, we need a haircut, but like, we should talk to Daniel more. So we went and followed him. Told him a cute little bedtime story and made him fall asleep. Yeah, good stuff.
I'm not sure what happens after that. I'm pretty sure it's the next day. Oh, it is the next day, and
yeah,
no matter what, I think that you're late for work.
You wake up super late, and they're like all yelling at you to get up because I think they said the day before that if they're late again, then they get their wages cut or something, or fired.
Yeah.
They're all yelling at Sean, which I don't understand because I'm like, Daniel, why didn't you wake him up? Why didn't you like kick him or something? It like doesn't make sense at all. But they're all yelling at him. Sean wakes up super late. And then he has to like run to the truck to get there in time. I don't remember.
Yeah, he does. He does have to run, and so you get there late. And then you go through that regular work day. I don't think you play through that work day. You don't play through the work day, but you get to the end where they get paid. And I think no matter what, you get paid less than what you're normally getting paid. And so everybody is pretty pissed off about it. And that's kind of where Finn sees for the first time, hey, Meryl's got this safe. And it's got all the money in it. And he starts formulating this plan, right? And that doesn't really come into play up until much later, where you kind of hang back. Everybody's heading back to camp. You hang back and you talk to Finn. And he starts talking about, hey, maybe we can rob him. We can rob Meryl and steal his money. Finn kind of brushes it off and says, oh, haha, just kidding, unless. So that night, you're hanging around the campfire, and you have a bunch of different options. You can talk to all the other characters, but two of the most important things that happen is you can talk to Finn, and you can talk to Cassidy. In my playthrough, I talked to Finn first because I hella knew that Finn and Cassidy were the love interests, and I knew you could romance Finn, and I really, really, really wanted that to happen. So I talked to Finn first. I chose to go along with Finn's scheme because I was thinking, you know what, ride or die, bitches, let's do this. And so doing that actually unlocks the option to get Finn as your romance interest, and so they kiss. Like right after you agree to the plan, they kiss. And then you can either ignore Cassidy completely, or you can go and hang out with her like in the lake, and you go skinny dipping. If you side with Finn, you don't get to kiss Cassidy, and she gets pissed off at you and she leaves.
Wait, what?
So that's only if you side with Finn. But if you don't side with Finn, you can tell Cassidy what's happening. And then when you get back to camp, you find out that... So here's where your paths divide. He kidnaps Daniel. And I think this is the ending that you got, Marisa, right?
It's because earlier something happened, and they were like, what the fuck was that? Because Daniel had done something in front of them, and then Sean and Daniel were forced to tell Cassidy and Finn and Jake about his powers, and that's where Finn gets the idea to like rob Meryl because Daniel has his sick powers.
That's right. I forgot about that. So they're in that room, and I think Daniel was caught snooping around or something to that effect, and Sean is about to get punched by Big Joe. His name's Big Joe. That's the bodyguard. So Sean's about to get punched, and Daniel lashes out, and he hits him in the back of the head or someone is going to get punched. And I think it's either...
It was like a rock or something that he hits him with.
It was like a cigarette.
Oh, the ashtray?
Yeah, the ashtray. It's an ashtray. I don't know what I'm talking about. So he gets hit with an ashtray, and everybody sees it, and Sean takes the blame for it. You can choose for Sean to take the blame for it, and if Sean doesn't speak up, then Finn will take the blame for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what, in all of my playthroughs, Sean took the blame.
We were really dumb, and we didn't do it in time, so I think Finn took the blame for us.
Oh my god.
But yeah, right after that happens is when they confront Sean and Daniel and was like, what the fuck was that? Yep. And they have to tell them about, because I remember why, because they left Daniel outside when they were getting paid.
Oh, that's right.
But then Daniel went through the front of the house and started snooping around, and then the security guard found him, and then Meryl was like, take care of it, and he left, and then he was about to like punch on I think he was going to punch on Sean because Daniel was too little. Too. And then that's when Daniel like freaked out and like shot the ashtray at his head. And then he was like, who did that?
I think he was going to hit Daniel. And Daniel...
Oh!
Yeah, I think he was going to hit Daniel. Daniel lashed out, tosses the ashtray. That's when Sean, because I remember Sean was behind.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It was like Sean, Finn, Cassidy, and Jake were all in the room. And then he was like, who did that? And then we were dumb and we didn't answer in time, so Finn stepped forward. But like we were going to take the blame, but Finn did it for us. But I remember later on after that, the part that you were talking about, we said no to Finn's plan. And we got the tattoo from Cassidy.
I got the tattoo from Cassidy as well. So I have like the stupid wolf thing, which...
I like it. It's really cute.
Not gonna lie, I'm like this close to actually getting the fucking tattoo of the wolf.
It's really cute. But yeah, we got the tattoo from Cassidy, and then we agreed to go swimming with her. But then she asked, she was like, you like Finn, right? And I think we said we liked Finn, but didn't like her, so we ended up kissing nobody. We went back to camp, realized they were gone, and then that's when me and Cassidy went to go find them.
Yeah, so in my playthrough, I went with Finn, and so you get to go through this little elaborate scheme where you have to hotwire a car, and you can either do it successfully or unsuccessfully, depending on how much noise you make. I did it unsuccessfully all times that I did it because I could not figure out how to do it successfully. Even though, in the end, when they show you all the options, there's an option to do it successfully. I did not get that no matter what. So I don't even know how to do it successfully.
So we went after that, because we never agreed to Finn. We agreed with Cassidy and to go find Daniel, since fucking Finn kidnapped him, basically. And so they had already left to the place where the safe is, to his house or whatever. So then there's like 3 cars that we can either hotwire them, steal them, like find the key.
I think that's the same options as I got. I think the only difference is whether or not you do it with Finn and Daniel or if you do it with Cassidy. Okay. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, so we did it with Cass only, and we accidentally alerted him, but we did hotwire the car. We didn't find the keys.
Yeah, I hotwired the car too, and I broke a window to get in. So that's how I did it. I
honestly think we did the same thing, but I don't remember.
Either way, you make it into the complex, and for me with Daniel, because I agreed to the plan both times. With Daniel, you can have him take out the security cameras. So that's the option that I got. I don't know about you, but you take out the security cameras, then you get in. And you, basically, you're this close, I think, to breaking open the safe, or you do. And that's where Big Joe and Meryl come in. And they're ready to, like, fucking kill you, like, straight up. There's a shotgun pointed at your heads, and you can either pick to have Daniel use his powers or not. And that is a determining factor on whether or not Finn dies. If you use his power... Finn survives, and if not, Finn fucking gets shot and he dies.
So I don't think that I had got that same option because we did hotwire the car, but there was a second car, and we had let the air out of the tires before then, so Big Joe could not follow us. So by the time we got to Meryl's house, we were like running around, and Meryl definitely hears us and wakes up, but he didn't threaten us as much as if it was like the both of them. It was only him, and then I don't think we had a choice on whether or not Daniel could use his powers because I think he just did it.
I know Daniel will use his powers no matter what. I think it depends on whether or not if Finn gets shot or not, or if he dies or not. I know that no matter what, Daniel will lash out.
Okay.
It depends on who he lashes out to.
Okay.
In both of my playthroughs that I did for the good and bad endings, I had Daniel using his power. And so he uses his power. Finn doesn't die. But I know that he'll use his powers a second time. And Sean gets hit, I think, by something. Either way, he gets hit by something. Daniel goes Hurricane 4.0, and Daniel, disappears. Sean ends up with a fucking glass in his eye. Spoiler alert, he fucking loses said eye. And then episode 4 begins.
Episode 4 begins, you're in the hospital, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You're by yourself, you're in the custody of the FBI, pretty much. They're about to take you to juvie, but they're leaving you in the hospital just to recover. There's this really cool nurse that comes in. I forget his name.
It's Joey, I think.
But Joey, he's awesome. It's just this big black guy, and he's really cool. And he comes in and talks to you about cool stuff. And it's pretty obvious that it's a little bit after the events in the third episode happens. But they don't know where Daniel is. So you keep getting hints. At one point, I think you can open a letter from the FBI agent that's asking about where Daniel's whereabouts. Or I think you can open your journal. Yeah, Agent Flores. You can open your journal, and he had written a bunch of stuff about what had happened earlier, and it's basically everyone interrogating him about Daniel's whereabouts because no one knows where he is. Joey eventually comes in. He helps you clean your eye, and it's the day before you are taken to juvie. So he's trying to teach you how to do it on your own so you can do it when you're in juvie.
Can I just say, the sound effects that they used for the eye cleaning thing were the worst.
I honestly don't remember what they were.
I remember them because I also could not help but thinking of that stupid Vine with that Middle Eastern family and the son when his mom is cooking macaroni, and then he leans over and he was like, "That's what good pussy sounds like." That's straight up the sound effects that they used, and I was dying.
I guess that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that. But
I do.
Yeah, he's
the only reason I remember.
He's teaching you how to clean your eye like a good little boy. And then you're kind of freaking out because you know that if you go to juvie, you can never find Daniel again. So you're trying to find ways out of this hospital room and different hints about how you can figure out where Daniel is.
Yeah, this is where I cheat and look up how to do it because I that shit was hard. I could not figure it out to save my damn life.
Oh, I think we figured it out, but eventually the FBI agent comes in and interrogates you, and you basically say you don't know where he is, you don't know what his possible whereabouts are. But then after that, Joey can come back in for the last time, and he's like, "Hey, I hid something in that for you." And then he's like, "Check it when I'm gone." And then he leaves, and you can look in it, and it's Sean's notebook. And if you look in it enough, you can realize that Jake had left you a message on where he had taken Daniel. And I think you mentioned it before, Jake's backstory was he came from this religious cult, basically, I think in Nevada or something.
Yeah. Nevada.
And he had left because he was gay, and they didn't accept him there, so he just like pieced out. But he still has a younger sister there who's about the same age as my bad. He has a younger sister who's about the same age as Daniel, and he figures like this is the safest place he can take Daniel because like they're not going to turn him into the police. They're a cult.
Yeah.
But he wants to go
like
back there.
Messiah.
Yeah, he wants to go back there because like his sister's there, his family's there, and he wants to help his sister because I think he did mention that she was sick in episode 3. So Sean learns that that's probably the best place that he can even like begin to start looking for Daniel, and figures that he's actually probably there himself. So he decides to break out of the hospital. And this is where there's a bunch of different options. So basically you can wait until dark, and then there's different things that you can do. Like I think personally we tried to get the FBI agent who's like outside your door at all hours of the night to come over and try to like trick him, but he didn't fall for it for us. And then I think we ended up calling Joey, and then we asked him like straight up for help, and he was like, bro, I have a family, I can't help you. And so then I think what we ended up doing was you can tear a bar out of the bathroom. Like if you've ever been in a hospital, there's a bar there to help you like sit down and get back up again. But the one in Sean's room was loose, so you can go ahead and rip that out of the wall. And then in hospitals, the windows are kind of bolted a little bit shut, so like no one can jump out of them or nothing can happen like that. But you can break the safety lock with this like with a bar from the bathroom, using it as a lever. So that's what we did, and we ended up getting out that way and like crawling outside and onto a scaffolding because the hospital is undergoing renovations, and you can like get under the scaffolding and then leave that way. And we ended up running into Finn, who in a separate hospital room, also under observation, because he got messed up when Daniel like lost his power as well. And then you can choose to talk to him or not talk to him. And I think we chose to talk to him and let him know that like we didn't blame him for anything that had happened, and let him know that like none of it was his fault. But I think you can, if you want to, like blame everything on him, which is just super mean to me. But
See, you can.
Yeah.
And I also know that if you pick the romance option like I did, it unlocks a dialogue choice that you have with Finn. And since I had that, it was nice. I saw Finn and I was thinking, oh, hey, is my bae. And Finn actually will talk to you. And basically, there's one line where he says that he tells Sean, I love you so much. And of course, and being me, I was thinking, yes, fucking please. So I was real happy about that love confession there. And then in my playthrough, I don't know if you got this one, but basically Sean hopes that they'll meet again.
Yeah, I think he said that to me as well. But like we didn't choose a romance option at all. He was pretty much like, I hope we can meet again, but like good luck on finding your brother. Like I hope you find him. And I think he apologized to us as well because we were against Saya in the first place, and he definitely said sorry about it.
Yeah, that was another dialogue that I got too.
You can leave the hospital and then steal a car. Oh my god, it's this episode. So anyway, you steal a car from the hospital, and then you just start driving towards Nevada, and you're driving, and then you get like super, super sleepy. And so you decide to pull over.
Oh no,
yeah.
I hate this fucking part. Oh my god. Dude,
you decide to pull over.
I hella fucking cried at that part.
I hated it very much. But anyway, you decide to pull over onto the road, off of the road, a little bit further down so that no one can see the vehicle you're in. You're sleeping, and then all of a sudden you're woken up by someone knocking on your window.
Before that happens, let me just say that that's like one of the times where you get to have a quote unquote like dream state with Esteban.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Something that they introduced in Life is Strange Before the Storm, which personally I loved, because then you get to see a better connection between son and father, or in Life is Strange Before the Storm, Chloe and her father. So I think that was a really good way to reintroduce Esteban back into the story. And you kind of get to see Sean's mental state a little bit.
Yeah, and it's definitely like as he is falling asleep, and then he has this weird vision about him and his father driving in this car. I believe it's like a flashback kind of about something that he had talked previously about his father about when he was teaching him how to drive.
Yeah, I think that's kind of
it's
also a really good glimpse into their relationship, on how much Sean loves, trusts his father, and also misses him. And I also think this episode, or that car portion of the episode, was really interesting if you chose the romance option, because there's a moment where Sean comes out to his father, and it was a really, really good moment, I think. And whether or not it is just a flashback or if it's a dream thing, I think that was a really, really important moment. And for me, that kind of stuck out a lot. And so Sean, in this episode, his father will ask about his relationship between him and Jen. And if you don't remember Jen, she appears in the first episode, where it's kind of a mention where Sean really likes her, and Lila calls herself, "Oh, Lila the Love Witch, I'm gonna get you two together." It's like one of those brief things where you kind of almost don't remember it. Sean can mention, "Oh, I kissed somebody and it was a boy," and Esteban is super, super chill about it. And he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, that's cool too. Tell me about him," type of thing. And I think that was a really important moment to show, just because there's not a lot of people, especially people of color, coming out stories aren't that great. Because I feel like there's a lot of cultural things where being gay or being bisexual or literally being anything, any letter in the LGBTQ plus community is usually frowned upon. So I think that was a really, really important part of that story. And also, I think it also strengthens that relationship, and further solidifies the fact that Sean and Daniel have been raised to be open about who they are as people.
I didn't get that part, I don't think. And now I kind of wish I had. I didn't know that happened. But basically, he just kind of, for me, anyway, he asked you about that. And I think the only option I had was like Layla or something else. But it definitely didn't go that deep when I played it, which I'm a little bit sad about.
You can definitely look it up on YouTube. For those of you that do want to watch that scene, if you didn't get that option, I'll put a link in the description to a channel that does have that little scene in it. But it's a pretty heartwarming scene.
But for me, you had that talk with your dad, and then you end up realizing that it's just a dream because someone ends up knocking on your window, the car that you have stolen. It wakes Sean up. He realizes, oh my god, like, I'm in this car that I've stolen. Like, is it the police? So I think you can choose to hide your meds at this point, because he has meds for his eye that he uses to clean it out and stuff. But anyway, the person who is knocking on his window tells him to, like, get out of the car, like, his hands up. He's armed, and he has, like, weapons that he can fire on you at any time. So, and personally, I had Sean get out of the car, hands up, and not say anything. But it ends up being these two fucking white people. And they're just there policing the border or something, and they just found this, like, one little brown kid in his car, and they decided to pick on him basically because they're on his property. and then they're asking him, like, why are you here? Why are you on property? And personally, I had him say, like, I just got tired. I pulled off the road. I didn't want to create a problem for anyone who was driving. And then there's this one dude who's really cavalier about getting into your face. And then there's a second guy with him.
By the way, might I mention, his fucking name is Chad. Honestly, that is like the biggest fuckboy name in the world. Apologies for any Chads who happen to be watching. But, like, let's be honest. That is the biggest fuckboy name in the world.
Yeah, it's this dude that's, like, getting into your face, and then the second dude who's kind of telling him to back down a little bit because he's just a kid. Like, you can see Sean is only, like, 15 years old. But still, this other dude is, like, getting in your face. He has a gun. He points it at Sean's face. And then he's trying to make him do these things for him because he thinks, like, they both think that Sean is an illegal alien coming up from the border and is trying to, like, get into the States. So he feels like it's his duty to come along and, like, confront these people and try and, like, intimidate them and try and call the cops on them. But personally, I just kept silent, like, the entire time. Like, he tries to make you say things in Spanish, and he tries to make you, like, sing songs in Spanish, and to intimidate you and try and make you feel lesser than him. And personally, I just, like, did nothing at that point.
I did a couple different things in both of my playthroughs. In my first genuine playthrough, I played it pretty safe. I kind of went along with whatever these racist idiots were saying because I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't want something bad to happen. But it wasn't until he took the toy that I had in the car that I was going to give to Daniel. When he took it, I got real mad and I was like, no, you can't have this. So as Sean, I reached out, grabbed it, and that's where things escalated, and I got punched as Sean. And in my other playthrough, I decided to talk back to these racists, and I said things like, I'm American, I belong here, what you're doing isn't right, it's wrong, and no matter what, I got beat up in all of them. But I think the one that struck me the most, and the one that actually made me cry, was when I went along with what the racists were saying, and I had Sean do whatever they said. And so he sang the song. And, dude, let me tell you, that was the most heartbreaking shit in the world. I straight up just cried. I had to take a break after that because you feel, especially as a person of color, you kind of feel what Sean is going through there. People saying racist shit to you and calling you out because your skin is a different color.
Yeah, we're caught between, like, we didn't want to escalate it any further, especially with, like, the crap that this dude was doing. So, or, like, I don't know, we just kind of took it a little bit because of the stuff that he was doing. So ours was basically just staying silent. Like, we didn't comply with him. We didn't actively go against him. We just stayed silent. And the second dude was, like, trying to tell the guy to stop because he could see that we were just a kid. But the dude just kept going, and he eventually did, like, start beating Sean up, which was, like, really hard to take. But that's what happened in our playthrough. We just stayed silent, and he just, like, beat up on us. And eventually the other dude convinced him to, like, leave. And then they were like, just go, like, just leave, go into your car and just get away. So we ended up driving into the night until the car runs out of gas, and then you can choose to keep walking on foot. So that's what we did. We got our stuff into our little backpack and started walking along. And then eventually in the distance you can see a billboard. It's like a casino billboard because it's the desert, and that's, like, all the billboards are casino billboards. And we made Sean sit down. He can choose to sketch the landscape. So we had him sketch the landscape, and then eventually I think you can choose to keep going. And we had Sean keep walking, and then a 18-wheeler comes up and offers you a ride. and you can choose either to keep walking or to take this guy up on his offer and get into the truck.
What did you
Personally,
pick for that?
we got into the truck. We were like, this is dumb. We're not walking. And we got into the truck.
Low-key, so in my first genuine playthrough, I did not get into the truck because I did not trust him, especially after that incident with the racist. I was not about to trust a stranger.
We were like, either way, we're fucked, and we'd rather be in air conditioning. So we got into the truck.
That's fair. So my second playthrough, I got into the truck, and turns out this truck driver is
really
actually
nice.
genuinely a nice person.
Yeah, he's really nice. He like gave you a sandwich, and then he asks where you're going. And once you tell him that it's the name of this town that Jake had given you,
Is it like New Haven?
and yeah, I think so. I think it's New Haven. But he's like, the truck driver was like, bro, I'll drop you off, but be careful because the people here are really weird. So then Sean gets out and he goes into the town, and pretty much the only thing there where the truck driver drops you off is a church. So you go there because that's pretty much the only thing you know about this since Jake told you about it. So you go there, there's this dude standing outside, and you talk to him, and he's like, are you here to see the Messiah? And you're just like, what? And he's like, the Messiah, he can heal you. And then he says, come to our service. It's in about 20 minutes or something. I don't remember what he says. So you can wander around a little bit and check outside, but eventually you have to go into the church. And that's when you go up, I think, into the balcony, and you can observe from above. But you find out that there's this lady who I guess runs this church and this entire facility, this freaking cult facility, and she brings out Daniel and is pretty much just using his power to gain like people's faith in their church. So he's basically using Daniel as this tool to attract more people to join.
That's when you meet Sarah Lee, I think.
Oh yeah, she like comes up to the fucking balcony that you're in, and he's like, and then she asks you something. Yeah, you realize that this is Jacob's little sister.
Yeah,
because she says something. I don't remember what she says.
I don't know what she says.
Yeah,
fine.
She was like, "Are you here to see Daniel?" And you were like, "Yeah." And she's like, I think you can tell her that you're his brother, and she's like, "Oh, I can let you know where he is or whatever."
Yeah.
And then she takes you down to meet this old lady or whatever. You find Daniel, then you try to talk to him into coming with you, but then he's like, "No, she's done so much for me." And then something happens, and they force you to leave, and you're like banned from there. They beat you up a little bit.
And then that's where Karen comes in.
Yeah.
She comes up behind you, and then Sean's like, gasp, Mom?
Yeah. So, like, they beat Sean up, and then this dude drags you, like, physically drags you outside of the church, dumps you outside the gates, and then that's when you, like, stand up, wipe yourself off, and turn and realize that that's your mom in, like, this truck.
Yep. Yeah.
And she's there to try and help you get Daniel back.
I think that moment's also kind of pivotal in the whole plot because she not only decides that she's going to help you, but, like, she takes you back to the hotel and you can, like, sort of reconcile with her. And I think that's, like, a really good moment. You can either choose to be a dick about it or you can choose to let her back into your life, kind of. I chose to let her back into my life a little bit, still being wary, but kind of wanted to see where this goes. So in all of the playthroughs that I did, I let her back into my life, and it was a good choice, I think.
That's what we did too as well. Like, there's like options to trust her but not fully, and that's pretty much what we did. Like, we would tell her some things but not other things.
Yeah.
Just being a little bit wary of her since she did like fucking ditch you all those years ago.
Yeah. So Karen says, I think that Jacob contacted her.
Yeah. He sent her a letter.
Yeah,
and it was like
why she agreed to help.
Yeah, he sent her a letter about what happened, and it was like, this is our location. This is where you can find Daniel. We don't know where Sean is at this point.
Yeah,
like when he
right.
wrote that letter, he didn't know where he went, but only that like this is where Daniel is.
Yeah.
And she shows Sean that letter and is kind of like, call him up, find out where he is. We can meet up with him, get more information about this. And at this point, Sean is still a little bit down about, like, he's beat up a bunch from the racist dudes in the desert and the guy at the church that have both beaten him up. So her name is fucking, what's her name? Karen?
Karen, it's Karen.
Sharon? It's Karen?
Karen, it's yeah. Her name is Karen.
So she's at the motel. She tells him to go ahead and wipe himself up, like get dressed, or take a shower, get dressed, calm down. You can take the opportunity as Sean, because she's going to go to the grocery store and get some supplies for them. So you're left alone in this motel room. You can take a shower. By the time you get out, you can decide whether or not to call Jacob. I decided to call him and talk to him about what he knows. And he knows that Daniel's being kept by the main lady who's running this cult. That's pretty much brainwashed by her a little bit. And then to meet him underneath a billboard that's off of the highway at like 5 o'clock the next day.
Oh, that's right. Shit, I forgot.
Yeah. So Karen comes back with the groceries, and then by this time, Sean is out of the shower, and he wants to clean his eye, and Karen offers to clean his eye for him, and you can decide to accept that or not. Personally, I did accept it just because it's like really hard cleaning your own eyeball. But that kind of opens up a little more dialogue about what had happened earlier and why she had left him. And that's pretty much the rest of the episode, is where they're trying to talk and reconcile what had happened. There's a part later on where you go outside and Karen starts smoking, and Sean can ask for a cigarette. Yeah. So we definitely asked for a cigarette, and she was like, bruh, sure. And she just gives you a cigarette. So you can sit there and just talk to her about what had happened and why she had done that. And then it gives you a little bit more insight on their kind of relationship. Like, I don't think Sean fully forgives her, but they're kind of getting over it a little bit, especially in that episode. And then they both vow to go and meet Jacob the next day underneath this billboard to see what happens.
I know that one was an interesting episode where you get to find out more about her. I think because at this point, I myself was still super skeptical about Karen's involvement, but then I kind of saw that she was trying. And I think, in a sense, she was a little bit of the new David, where she was trying her best, but her best is kind of like right there versus her best being there, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I felt about Karen. But in episode 5, that changes for me, where her best goes from here to about there. It's still not the best, but it's there.
They go meet up with Jacob underneath this fucking billboard, and then they realize what they have to do, pretty much. So Jacob agrees to help them, but only if they agree to get his sister as well, because she's been sick with something for like a long time.
Oh yeah.
And his parents won't take her to the doctor because they believe in this lady's fucking
teachings.
I don't know. Yeah, bullshit so much. So they don't take her to a real doctor.
Yeah.
So basically the entire their agreement is to go back into the compound, find the paperwork for his sister, like her health records and stuff, so that Jacob can actually take her to a doctor, and then also find Daniel so that Sean can take him back home, meet their mom, and then continue going on their way to Mexico. And they both agree to that. Pretty much. I don't think you can refuse. Can you refuse? I don't know.
I don't think you can. I think no matter what you do. And I think that's also where you find out that Elizabeth has been keeping personal files on everybody that's in their compound. And that's where you find out that Jacob is gay. and he was essentially kicked out for being a quote-unquote sinner. Which, by the way, for all of you out there who are watching, being gay is not a fucking sin. Just saying. I grew up in a community like this where being gay is considered a sin. I am still Christian. I am still gay. Actually, I'm more than just being gay. I'm like a lot of letters, but like being a transgender gay person does not, I say gay, but bisexual, just overall term, that does not mean that I am a sinner. Like, you will not go to heaven for being straight. Just throwing that one out there for all of you who are in a similar situation like Jacob, or who feel that way. But yeah, that's where you find out where Jacob felt very jilted, and he felt that he needed to atone for his quote-unquote sin. And that's also where you can talk to him as Sean. If you pick the romance option, you can talk to Jacob and say, hey, it's not a bad thing. You being gay is not a sin, type of thing. And I think that's very crucial, I think, in your friendship with Jacob, that he does feel accepted in some way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, they go back to the compound, and then they're trying to break out Daniel and Jacob's sister, and they come up with Sean's mom bought walkie-talkies for them so that they can keep communication as they're trying to infiltrate. And so the first thing they have to do is break into What's-Her-Face's house and try and get the files on Jacob's sister. So they go in there. They're rooting around. This is where you can find out that this is the equivalent of going into Kate's room in Life is Strange 1, is because you have to figure out all this stuff for later on in the episode. So you have to go to their house and look at everything to get the right information for later on.
Yeah.
So you're in their house, you're looking around, you can look into their kitchen. I think you eventually break into her office. But you can go into like Daniel's room as well and see what she's been having him do, which is just makeup. She lets him draw, but not as fantastical as he was before. He just has pictures of him and her together and like holding hands and is like, this is my new family. And it's super weird. Like, he completely forgot about everyone else, like Sean and his dad and Esteban, their dad. Because it's just
like looking in Daniel's room and seeing all of Lisbeth's house, low-key, I got some real, like, predatory vibes from her.
But yeah, she didn't let him have anything. It was basically, his room was just a desk with a couple of, like, faith homeworks that she made him do, and then a bed with, like, nothing in it. Like, it's just a bed. He has no stuffed animals or something on the walls. There's no decorations except for, like, a cross or two.
Yeah.
And then eventually you can, like, go into her room as well, like her bedroom, and you find out that she has been to the doctor and she has like some kind of serious disease and she has medication for it. But for some reason, she won't let anyone else in the compound go to a real doctor. So it's very, very, very hypocritical, which comes into play later. You do have to look around and find the key to her office to get in there, and like that is where the file cabinet is and where the information on Jacob's sister is. But once you do make it into her office and find that information, you realize that someone had noticed that you had broken in, and she sends someone in to look for whoever has broken in, and you have to hide.
Oh, shit. That was super stressful, because I actually got caught the first few times.
How do you get caught? I'm shook.
I did not. I forgot to, I think, close one of the file cabinets, or I didn't lock something. And also I picked the wrong hiding place a few times. It took me a while to get this one right. I hid under the desk, and he caught me right away. And then I hid in the closet, but I forgot to lock like one of the cabinets or whatever it was, so I got caught right away.
I don't know how, but somehow our playthrough was blessed because we did not get caught at all. We decided we got into the closet. We really thought that Jacob was gonna get caught because he decides like the stupidest place to hide,
Oh, God.
like directly behind the door,
Yeah.
and you could see everything that happens. So like we were in the closet, everything is closed, and then the door opens. A dude comes in, who decides to hide behind the door. So like if this dude had closed it behind him, he would have been caught instantly.
Yeah.
But somehow he didn't get caught, and we got to get out of there with the file, thankfully. And then that's where you kind of break paths, where Jacob goes to get his sister
Oh, that's right.
to take her, and then you and your mom go into the church to confront this old lady. I forget her name.
Lisbeth.
Lisbeth.
It's like Elizabeth, but without the E, so it's just Lisbeth.
Yeah, Lisbeth. So you go into the church. It's her and Daniel, and she's trying to make him practice his powers or something with a lot of candles. I don't remember.
Yeah, the candles. I remember.
Yeah. So then Sean and his mom bust in, demanding that she let Daniel go. And Daniel's kind of confused at this point. He doesn't know who to trust. And this is where it converges, like with Life is Strange 1, like I said earlier, where to save Kate, you had to learn all this stuff about her by snooping about her room. To save Daniel, you also have to do the same thing, but with Lisbeth in her house. So the way I personally did it was whenever he would bring up a point, I would bring up a counterpoint. Like he would say, Lisbeth can heal people and like, or helps me heal people. And then you could say, she doesn't do that. She goes to the doctor. She doesn't let people go to the doctor. Like Jacob's sister is super sick. You can see that, but she doesn't let her go to the doctor. And you would just have to keep bringing up these counterpoints for Daniel until he sees kind of what she has been doing. But that doesn't sink in until she has a bodyguard come and start like fucking up Sean. And personally, I just had Sean take it.
Oh, I know, me too. Same.
Yeah. Because, like, you can't go back against him without, like, showing Daniel bad influence.
Yeah.
So we just, like, took everything, but you just had to keep getting back up and saying the counterpoint to that. And I don't know. It was wild.
I think that ending scene was super powerful because at that point, you almost didn't really have any other choice but to tell Daniel that, hey, we're brothers. I'll look after you no matter what. Just keep reiterating the fact that Sean cares for Daniel no matter what happens. And that perseverance, like, no matter how hard this dude keeps hitting Sean, he'll keep getting back up again because Daniel is all that matters. And so I think that scene was extremely powerful. And this is where your ending and my ending completely differed.
Yeah, because personally, I guess to a point, like, since she was having Daniel control these candles, he eventually loses control and drops them, and so then the entire church ends up catching on fire. And from that point, she has someone blockade the doors, and you can decide either to break through and get out, or I think what happened in yours is that Daniel fucking killed her.
Yeah, so she goes in front of them, and she basically blocks the door, says, no, you're not getting out. Daniel lashes out. No matter what, in any playthrough, Daniel will always lash out. And Sean has the option of letting Daniel do whatever he wants or stepping in. And in my playthrough, I stepped in each time, but in my bad ending playthrough, Daniel just straight up fucking killed her. Did not listen to me at all. He was just, bye, Lisbeth, snapped her neck, she fucking died. In my good
snaps her neck.
Oh yeah, she straight up died. You hear it too. You don't see it, but you hear it. Karen is, of course, fucking horrified. And if you choose to intervene, Sean will shoot Lisbeth before Daniel kills her. But in my good...
I forgot he had a gun.
Oh yeah, there was a gun, and you could pick it up. I think you had to pick it up, no matter what.
It's because her flunky had the gun, and then he eventually dropped it. Yeah. And you couldn't pick it up. I know we threatened her with it, but we did not shoot.
Yeah. In my good ending playthrough, I intervened and I told Daniel to stop, and he just threw her aside. So
yeah, that's what I got.
Mildly harmed, but he didn't snap her neck, and then you can just walk right out of the church. In my bad ending, Daniel
Yeah.
just straight up fucking killed her. There was
No,
no other option. I didn't actually know there was another option to let Lisbeth live until I was looking at spoilers afterwards, because I was scrolling through Tumblr, as I always do, and there was an option to let her live, and I was horrified. I was thinking, are you kidding me? She could have lived? How do I let her live? And then when I saw the spoilers of, oh, you have to have had a good option showing Daniel, like, here's all the good paths that you can take. That's when I started my next couple playthroughs to see could I get Lisbeth to live. And that's when I did get the option. Lisbeth can live if you pick like all the good options in the previous chapters.
We were a good boy. We got good options.
I was not a good boy.
Yeah, in my playthrough, he just threw her aside, and then we walked out, and then I think eventually the bodyguard he basically hauls her out because she tries to go down with the church.
Oh, yeah.
She's just like, leave me here, leave me to die, and then her bodyguard has to like pick her up and drag her outside so she doesn't die. And then at that point we had Daniel, and then we just like drove off.
Yeah.
We drove back to the billboard to where Jacob was, where we said we'd meet up. And he has a sister. He basically tells you, I'm going to take her to the hospital. I have her information. We're going to try and get her
real help,
treatment. And then they decide to stay in touch and let each other know what happens from then on.
Yeah.
And they're in the car with Karen, and then they drive out into the sunset.
So episode 5 begins. You are in this place in Arizona. Yay, home state Arizona.
They're like by the Grand Canyon, right?
They are, yeah. So they're right by the Grand Canyon, which I think was pretty amazing. And I think out of all the game development I've ever seen where it takes place in Arizona, it actually looks like Arizona. And
it really does.
It's Utah, Arizona. Because I've seen a lot of movies where they say, oh, it's in Arizona. But then if you are native to Arizona, like you and I are, you can very clearly tell this is fucking Utah or this is fucking California. You can tell. And so I think the game developers did a really good job of depicting what Arizona actually looks like.
Oh.
And so this place, I believe, is called Anywhere. It's called Away. So you are in Arizona. Close. And it's basically this super small community of people who live in trailer parks. And they're such good souled people. Soul as in S-O-U-L. They're good people, and they're just there to escape from their lives and live the best life that they can. And honestly, I loved all the people who lived in this trailer park community. I think if I had the option, the financial means, I would probably live in a community like that. But you get to live there, and the very first opening, you are, I think, in the Grand Canyon, and you're hanging out with Daniel, and you're stargazing, and that's kind of where you're introduced to the fact that these kids have lived in Arizona for quite a while now, and they're living with Karen, and I think it's a really good, glimpse into their life, that they're starting to make things kind of normal again, despite the fact that they know that this situation is only temporary. So you get back to the neighborhood. Karen's out. She's gone with one of their neighbors named David, and they're out in the main town where they're getting groceries. Daniel is hanging out with his new friend who is a sculptor. You basically get to walk around the compound. This was a fun thing, I think, that you get to do, where you get to walk around the compound and you get to interact with Daniel at certain points, based on, you see a garden, Karen's garden, I think, and you can comment on it, or the solar panels, you can also chat with Daniel over walkie-talkie. Either way, you get through the morning, and Karen and David come back, and that's the first time you get a glimpse at David. And this is the David from Life is Strange, the first Life is Strange and Before the Storm. And can we just talk about him for a second here, because I knew he was going to show up, and I think it was a really, really good tie-in to the first games without explicitly, without explicitly bringing in Max and Chloe. They brought in David, and I think this is a game that redeems David.
Reveals.
Because in the first game, David was a shit person. And the only reason
doing his best.
He was doing his best, but let's be honest,
his best wasn't good.
But in this game, backtracking. So in the first game, he was only partially redeemable because he rescues Max from the dark room, and you can see that he genuinely cares for Chloe, despite the fact that he doesn't actually show it. Then, in Before the Storm, all of that went away when you saw David and Chloe's interactions, and David's back to being, fuck this asshole, right? But this game is what fully redeems him as a character, and you actually genuinely like him. Personally, I did in this game. And you can see that in multiple ways by the way he acts. He's very different. He grew his hair out. He's got this ponytail now, which, let me tell you, that was jarring. He's got this ponytail, full-on beard. And he seems like a totally different person, which is really interesting. Either way, we'll get back to David. So back to the main story. Karen and Sean and Daniel spend their afternoon together, and Karen happens to mention that, hey, she wants to spend an evening with her sons. And so they go out hiking together, and that's where she reveals that when she and David were in town, the feds were starting to close in on where they were, and that this has to be their last night in a way, that they have to leave, they have to cross the border because the FBI is coming. There's no way around it. They're closing in. They have to go. And so they enjoy their last night together. They set off lanterns. It's very beautiful. And so the next morning, Sean makes his rounds, saying goodbye to everybody, and that's where we come back to David. And I remember I told you when you were playing through that episode, listen to David's conversation when he picks up the phone.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that moment is when everything was redeemed for him. He is now a character that I genuinely like. And that's because he helps Sean and Daniel by giving them a police scanner, which, by the way, I feel like he would have never done that if he had stayed the same character in Before the Storm and in the first Life is Strange. He would have never done that at all. He's very like pro-army, pro-police type of character. But now in this one, he's literally helping Sean and Daniel escape from the police. And I like that he talks about his relationship with Chloe. Because as Sean, you get to explore the inside of David's trailer. And you get to see a picture of Max and Chloe and where they are now. This is, by the way, this is if and only if you saved Chloe and let Arcadia Bay get destroyed by the tornado. And you can see that he's mourning over Joyce. He has a menu from the Two Whales Diner in a frame, and it's very sad and it's very heartbreaking. And you see a picture of Max and Chloe and a letter that they sent him in his trailer. And later on, you can ask him about it, and he talks about how Chloe called him step douche, and that he fully acknowledges that he was an asshole as a person, and that he didn't understand why Chloe was acting the way that she was. And then finally, after Arcadia Bay was destroyed and she and Max left, David had to kind of go on his own. And he said it took him a while, but eventually he came to terms that he was a terrible person, and he was the one who reached out to Chloe first to apologize for everything that he'd ever done to her. And that he didn't mean to be a terrible person. He didn't know how to act, how to be. And so they were able to reconcile. And now, before you listen to their conversation, you can think, oh, David's just still a shitty person, whatever it is. But he mentions that Max and Chloe came to visit him in a way. Not to mention that when you listen in on their full conversation like I did, he's casually talking to Chloe and they have a good relationship to the point where you find out Max and Chloe are living in New York together. Max is a straight up full-on artist. She's got a gallery thing going on in New York. And then at the end of their conversation, David says, "Okay, I'll talk to you soon. I love you." And it's a very, very sweet moment. And I think that right there sums up David's whole character arc. Took him 3 games, but it was a really, really good character development, I think. He went from this super asshole who's trying his best, and his best was like right there, to him fully accepting who he is, accepting his faults, being a better person, and now his best is here, where it should be.
Because I remember you telling me, you're like, David's in it, and I was like, what the fuck? And then we got to that episode, and we were walking around, and then you can see on the side of his van that there's the treasure map that Max and Chloe had made when they were little, and it's like leaning against his van, and I was just like, Diana, do you recognize that? And she was like, no. And then later on, it's actually David, and she was just like, what the fuck? And it was so funny to me. But yeah, his arc is definitely really cool to see. Like, I know you hated him, but personally, I was just like, he's trying to do his job.
Like, I hated him up until like the last half of Life is Strange, and then I fully just straight up hated him again in Before the Storm.
I don't think he's a bad person. Like, he definitely means well, but it doesn't come out that way with him.
Yeah.
Like, he's very bad at trying to describe his, like, true intentions. But yeah. I think he's definitely got it by this point. Like, he knows where he went wrong, and he's trying to remedy it.
Yeah.
And trying to help these 2 boys escape the police.
That was by far one of my favorite parts about episode 5. Because after this, everything just fucking goes downhill. And by downhill, I mean emotionally downhill.
The other thing that was, like, super weird for me personally was that this first part of episode 5 took so long. Like, because there's a part... we talked to, like, every single person, and it took forever.
I mean, I did too, but it did not take me forever.
I don't know, maybe we're just dumb. But personally, it took a long time to get through and talk to everybody. And there's a part where, like, Daniel has a scavenger hunt for you. You have to go and do the scavenger hunt. Did you do that?
I did. Actually, there's a glitch in the game where you're supposed to do the game with Daniel, but there's a bug in the PS4 version. I'm not sure where you played it, but there's a bug in the PS4 version where Daniel's quest actually won't start. And so you actually have to quit the game, restart it, and then Daniel's quest will pop up. So that's what happened to me. I had to restart the checkpoint, and Daniel's quest actually came back up again, and that's where I got to play it. Otherwise, you will be stuck wandering around away forever. I had to Google it. I said, what's supposed to happen? And everybody was saying, oh, it's a bug in the game. You have to restart it. So I had to restart that port, restart that checkpoint, and get Daniel's quest. So I actually didn't know that. So I was wandering around away for a good half hour before I got very confused. And I was wondering why Karen had not come back yet from the store.
Oh, like, I think they must have patched that when we played. But we were playing on PS4, but it still took us forever. I don't know. First, talking to everybody and then doing the quests finally just took a really long time. And then we finally did talk to David, and I told Diana, I was just like, listen to what he's saying, because she didn't believe me when I said that this was David from the first Life is Strange. She, like, did not believe me. And then he finally, like, answered the phone and started talking to Chloe, and she was just like, oh. But yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it just took us a really long time to get through that. Like, to the point where when they finally left, we were just like, is this it? is this the end? And then it got to that point, and we were just like, it's not the end.
Yeah, it got real after they left away, where you make it to the border, and I think there's a very, very cute cutscene between that where you're driving, and you let Daniel drive the car, and it's very, very sweet. You get to the border, and you have Daniel blast open the wall essentially, and these fucking racist ass motherfuckers drive up and they shoot Daniel.
Yeah.
And I think they shoot him in the chest or something like that. They shoot him in the chest or the arm or whatever it is. Sean's panicking because Daniel looks fucking dead as shit, bro.
Yeah.
And it's these two racists, they come up. So that portion ends in a cutscene, and there's no way around it. And it's a really difficult cutscene to watch. Because Sean gets a bag thrown over his head. You hear the racists arguing with Border Patrol. Border Patrol, by the way, has authorized these people to go around in their car and shoot at people who are coming through the wall. It's really horrible, and I'm also 100% sure that this happens. Because, let's be honest, our Border Patrol are real shady motherfuckers. I have a lot of comments on the status of our current government and the way that they handle things, but I'm gonna save that for an offline topic. Either way, Sean and Daniel are dragged away to a Border Patrol facility. Sean is, I believe, knocked out, and he wakes up in this jail cell with another immigrant couple who tried to cross the border as well, but also got caught. And let me tell you that this is first scenes where Sean will speak Spanish, and full Spanish, and you already know that he speaks Spanish based on your encounter with the racists in the desert with Chad, where he does speak it. But also there are other inclinations that he is fluent in Spanish, and I think it's because Esteban taught him. As you're in this jail cell, you're talking to this couple in Spanish. Let me just say, first of all, that Sean's voice actor is really good. Just emotionally, the way that he handles the whole game itself is absolutely stellar. Like, shout out to him. He's really, really good. And especially in this moment, you can hear all the emotion in his voice. He empathizes with this couple who crossed the border to try to make a better life for their unborn child. And so, as they're talking in Spanish, these motherfucking racists in the next cell, because they also got arrested for shooting a 9-year-old child. They shot a 9-year-old child, so of course they get arrested. At least there's mercy in that. They got arrested. The daughter, because it's a father-daughter duo, and the daughter gets super pissed off. They're talking in Spanish, saying, "Oh, you're in America, you need to speak English."
Their father and daughter?
Yeah, their father and daughter. Oh no, what did you think?
I thought they were married.
Their father and daughter.
That's worse. Somehow that is worse. That's way worse.
Yeah. She gets pissed off, and that's when the guard comes in, takes Sean in handcuffs to an interrogation room, and he's trying to talk to Sean and say, "Hey, I know who you are. You gotta confess. Agent Flores is on her way." And the lights start to flicker, right? And Sean is saying, "Sir, don't go out there," because you can hear the commotion. You can hear the commotion Daniel's causing. He is ripping this building to shreds, trying to find Sean. So the officer opens the door. He gets thrown back. Daniel busts in, breaks Sean out. And as you're leaving, you have the option to release the couple in custody, and you also have the option to release the racists. Personally, I let the couple go, and I left the racists behind bars because fuck them and their stupid ass motherfucking ways.
So when I did it, it wouldn't let us release the Mexican couple. We got no prompts for that. So we basically just left them there along with the white couple, I guess, father and daughter. I don't know.
God,
that they were
did?
A couple. So we left both of them in the jail. Yeah.
Oh my god. So
it didn't give us the prompts.
Okay, so if you ever replay it, the prompts happen after Daniel questions you about the couple. And if you walk close to the jail cell and you look at them, there's an option to release them.
It only did it for the white couple, and it wouldn't do it. They're not a couple. The white people. It only gave us a prompt for the white people and not for the nice Mexican couple.
Oh
It didn't do it. It didn't give us a prompt.
There was an option for revenge on the white couple, but I didn't take that option because I was already raising a psychopath, so I didn't want to further instill that in him.
Fair, but yeah, we didn't. We just kind of left them both there, which I felt really bad about, but it literally did not give us a prompts. Because we wanted to let them out. We, ran around it for, 10 minutes trying to figure it out, but it just didn't come up.
Oh, God. Okay, well,
yeah.
I released the Mexican couple, and so we're going in, and of course, ICE shows up, and they're threatening to shoot us, and you have to cause a bunch of different distractions. I actually got it wrong the first time around, and they died.
You can get it wrong?
Oh, you can get it so wrong. So the first time I did it, Daniel killed them because they got too close, and Daniel had to act. The second time I did it, there's an option to shove them into a locked room. Or into an open room, you can shove them in, have Daniel shove them in, shut the door, lock it behind them. That's the option that I did for the second time around that I played it. After you escape, you take the car, you head down to the border, and that's where you're confronted by Agent Flores and a bunch of other police officers. And this is the moment where you choose your ending. And so
yeah.
Let's go over that, because in the first endings that I got, my first genuine playthrough, and I picked they have to go straight on to Mexico, because I kind of felt this is the journey you started on, you have to finish it. So they went on to Mexico, and this ending, by the way, is called Blood Brothers. And you make it down to Puerto Lobos. I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly. I'm pretty sure I didn't. Essentially, Sean and Daniel get involved in gang activity. They become top dog, basically. And the episode ends with Sean and Daniel running their own auto mechanical shop, because, of course, Sean picked it up from his father. And a rival gang comes in, and Daniel fucking kills them for intruding on their mechanical shop. That is the first of the bad endings that you can get. When I went back and I replayed it to do the option where Sean surrenders, this is the ending where I think is the literal worst fucking ending you can get. I'm okay with the Blood Brothers one because at least they're still together. But in the Lone Wolf ending, Sean is going to surrender. Daniel decides, no, I don't want to do that. He pushes through the barricade. All the FBI agents, all the cops, they're shooting at Sean and Daniel, and Sean gets shot in the process. So that was extremely heartbreaking because you cross the border. Daniel is saying, oh my God, Sean, we made it. And Sean fucking dies. He gets shot in the neck. He straight up just dies. You have to listen to him die. Daniel is devastated, which, by the way, shout out to Daniel's voice actor, who did a phenomenal job of acting out all of this. So Daniel basically takes the same route. He becomes top dog in Mexico and essentially ends up murdering a bunch of rival gang members. And at the very end, you see him on the beach, and he's got a cross out for Sean, and I straight up fucking cried at this ending because Sean's dead, Daniel's all by himself, and I hated it. I pretend that one didn't happen. But in my other playthroughs, I did the redemption. I got the redemption ending, and then I got the other one.
Parting Ways?
Parting Ways. In my good playthroughs, those were the endings that I got. And I think, Marissa, you got the redemption ending, correct?
I got redemption because I made Sean give himself up to the police. I did not make my little Daniel a monster. And I chose to give Sean up. Just because right before that choice, Sean was talking to Daniel about how they have to be better and they have to be able to make good decisions and that they don't want to hurt people anymore. Like Daniel specifically said, I don't want to hurt people anymore. And then we got to the border and there's a bunch of people that's standing there with guns, and then you had to make that decision. And up until that point, we had literally not looked up any other decision. And then it got to the point where it was like, what was even the decision? It was like surrender or go through the wall, and we surrendered because one, we had just said that to Daniel, like we can't go around hurting people anymore. And as we looked it up, we realized that if we had decided to go through the wall, that Daniel would have to hurt people, and he had just said that he didn't want to. And then the second one was like you said earlier in the episode, where you're like, I don't think it would have ended up differently. We decided that that was probably the best choice. Like we tried to get to Mexico, we didn't make it. This was how it would have ended up anyway. And at least this way that Daniel gets a better life. So we decided to give Sean up since he was the older one. And even though he didn't really do any of the things that they accused him of, he took the blame for Daniel. So that way he could have a better life.
Yeah. And I think no matter what, even the Border Patrol agent tells you that Daniel's too young to be convicted.
Yeah.
So no matter what, Sean will always take the blame for it. And I think, so you don't ever get the option to tell Daniel that no matter what, Daniel will be fine.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wish that you were able to tell Daniel that, but you don't get that opportunity, which I think is fine anyway, because I think even if we had the opportunity to tell Daniel, I don't think I would have. I think I would have kept that to myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I also chose, during my good ending, I chose the parting ways ending because I knew that no matter what, Daniel was going to be fine. I also did not want Sean to go to jail because I knew what this ending was before I even picked it. So when it came to my good playthrough, either you had to surrender or you had to go to Mexico. I decided to follow through on going to Mexico because A, that's kind of what they set out to do, and B, I knew that was going to be the option that would keep Sean out of jail. And I wanted him to stay out of prison because no matter what, I think realistically, the system is rigged. And no matter what, Sean would have always gotten the short straw. Or the short stick, whatever it's called. And so I wanted them both to live their best lives as best they could. And I knew that no matter what, Daniel was going to be fine. Sean, on the other hand, was either going to suffer in prison or he would be okay in Mexico. And so that's the option that I picked. So when I did my good ending, I got Sean through to Mexico. And I think another moment that was so powerful is that's where the moment where Daniel decides to be his own person. He decides that he wants to stay and he wants to not hurt people. And I think that's a result of the way that you decided to teach him. It's not the best option. I think, personally, no matter what, there's no good option. In the bad endings, Sean either dies or becomes part of a gang, although technically I think it's a 2-person gang. Either way, his path is not a good one. He gets fucked up in prison, or he's separated from Daniel presumably for a very long time. So I think no matter what, there's no good ending, there's no happy ending for Sean. And in my personal perspective, I think that getting the parting ways ending was the best option because Sean ends up in Mexico. If you picked the romance option, whether with Cassidy or with Finn, you ended up in Mexico with the both of them. Or you ended up either with Finn or Cassidy. And then Daniel gets to spend the rest of his happy life in Beaver Creek with Chris as his best friend. He gets a new dog. He's living with his grandparents. He's got a good relationship with Karen. Because at the very end on that cutscene, you see that Daniel's on the phone with Karen. They have a good relationship. She has a good relationship with her parents. And I think personally for me, that was the best option because it's not necessarily a good ending, but I think it's the one that had the most satisfying compromise, I think. Sean doesn't go to jail for a crime he didn't commit. Daniel is technically under house arrest because he's got that ankle monitor, but he's living his best life.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to do that to them. Like, even with Sean having to take the blame, at least Daniel can have him in his life. Because I feel like if Sean had made it to Mexico, then they couldn't communicate as well as they would have with Sean in jail. Just because people are still kind of monitoring Daniel's, like, whereabouts. So I don't know. We chose that him going to jail was the best option. And then once he does get out of jail, even though it's 15 years later, they get to continue on with their lives after that.
I 100% agree with that. And I think that's kind of what makes this game so powerful in the endings, is that there is no good option. And I think that's very true to life in the sense of, if you are a person of color, there is no good option for you if you are in that type of situation. The system is always rigged against you, especially when cops are involved. A cop died, and so there has to be a scapegoat. No matter how old you are, I think that there's always that sense of, I don't even know what to call it, honestly.
Yeah.
But there's always that sense of danger. If dipping into politics here, which probably I'm going to cut this part out, but if you are a white person, there are a better chance that you're going to get off on like a warning, versus if you are a person of color, there's kind of no other option for you. Somebody will blame you for something. And I think especially now with the Black Lives Matter movement, all that shit is coming to the surface. People of color are being made to be scapegoats, and I think this game emphasizes that a little bit.
Thanks for watching this episode on Life is Strange 2. This is our last playthrough for this series. If you have a suggestion on what we should play next, go ahead and leave a comment. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you can see when our next episode is coming out. For now, I'll go ahead and lead us out on our big cheers for the end of the episode. Big cheer!
Big cheers!
One whole big cheers! Ready? Kampai!